I am Katie Holloway of Lose Yourself Books, and here is what I read in May 2025. It's been quite a diverse month. First off was Wildfire by Hannah Grace. I didn't actually rate this book very much. I love the premise. Two young people, university students who are in the States at summer camp as helpers, and romance happening around campfires and things. I loved that idea, but actually it didn't fulfill that for me. What I did like was that on Hannah Grace's website, there's a kind of a guide to each of her books. So it's very X-rated, the sex content, but she's got pages that you can skip if you don't want that content. So I did like that you had that option if you wanted to. However, for me, without that real explicit sex, there wasn't much of a book. The chemistry between these two was entirely physical during those moments, and I thought that the tension between they're not allowed to date each other, I thought that would kind of make for a really fun setting and caring for the kids as well. But actually, it was just really sex based, and the relationship didn't seem to be much beyond that. So for me, this one was a bit of a flop. I thought there would be more romance, but it turned out to be very physical. For me, that was a no. The next book I read was an audiobook that I got from the library and I've had to return, but it was The Bookshop Ladies by Faith Hogan. I really enjoyed this. It was set primarily in Ireland, a little bit in Paris, with an American, one of the main characters. So that was quite fun, that kind of mix of cultures. Three women with various trauma in their backgrounds come together at a bookshop. There's kind of the generational drama, there's a bit of romance, there's kind of secrets that come out as the one of the main characters discovers that her husband had a daughter that she never knew about. She meets the daughter at the bookshop, but then that kind of relationship develops. I don't know how I would have described the genre of this book. It wasn't very romance, but there was some of that. It was maybe a saga with the relational differences, but it does happen in one generation's lifetime, so it's not of that. Really nice book. Not my absolute favourite, but I did really enjoy The Bookshop Ladies nonetheless. Next was one I borrowed from somebody and I've had to return. That's the cover. Has God Finished with Israel by Rob Richards. This was published in the early 90s, but it actually holds quite well. I read this because somebody at church wanted me to read it so we could discuss it. And I didn't agree with where Rob Richards landed, but it was a great kind of look at the issues of what is God's plan with Israel in the Old Testament and then in the New Testament and today. I really liked his overview of that, and it was quite accessible for the average reader. Wasn't too academic, very biblical. I really liked it. Didn't agree with where he landed, although I found he waffled around where he was landing a bit, so it was actually hard to pinpoint what he was actually saying, which is a bit frustrating. But once I realised what that was, I disagreed with him, but I was really glad to have read it. Next, I told you it was a diverse month, was The Life of the Robin by David Lack. This was a book that I picked up at a free bookshop that we have locally because we discovered robins nesting in our shed. And then I saw this and I thought, oh, I want to learn more about robins. This book was so quirky. It was published in the 70s, written before that, for a couple of decades before that. So it's quite dated and quaint in its style, but I just loved that about it. It was so charming. This literally is a book, it's not terribly long, about robins and their life, their breeding patterns. It was quirky and charming and fun. I don't think the author intended it to be fun, but I found it quite fun. Next was Funny Story by Emily Henry. I think we all know Emily Henry and many of us love her. I really enjoyed this book. Again, there were explicit sex scenes in it, but they weren't they weren't on every other page like in some books. I think there was one probably scene where it was quite intense and explicit, but the rest was not so bad. If bad is the word you want to use. It was a really light-hearted story, a really unusual premise. Two people are together, they break within two separate relationships, they break up, and then the the kind of jilted parties end up living together. So it's that kind of forced proximity, the kind of friends for lovers, that kind of thing. It was just really a fun summer read. They go off on day trips and adventures and things. And as we know with Emily Henry, there are book lovers in it. So the main character works in a library, and I really liked that about it. So this was a really fun, light-hearted read that was just reasonably nice. Next was The Bookshop by Penelope Fitzgerald. This was different again. I just love books about books. I'm writing a book about books. This was fun. This was set in the 50s in Suffolk, I think, and a widow goes to this little village in Suffolk and wants to set up a bookshop, but the village really don't want one. And it was just the dynamics of that, the kind of village life. Oh, you're an outsider here, quintessentially British, and just really lovely. The main character had, I've forgotten her name, Florence. She was such a great character. She was plucky and determined and stubborn in all the best ways. And it just was a really lot of fun. This was a very short book as well. I think it was only 150 pages. I just really loved it. It was charming and lovely. And finally, I have just finished listening to the audiobook of Summer Wedding by Sarah Morgan. I'm just getting the picture up for you because that was another audio that I borrowed from the library. There it is, Summer Wedding by Sarah Morgan. I didn't know where this was going, and the plot of this was fantastic, but I found that I was expecting something different. I thought this was going to be a light romance, but it turned out to be real family drama. But I was invested in it. I think it felt a bit long. It felt took a bit of time to get into it. I think I found some of the scenes a bit long, but I really enjoyed the plot, the character development, and the psychology of the characters was brilliant. She's clearly a talented writer. And what I appreciated was there was no bad language, no explicit sex. There was some sex, but it was quite off page. I just liked that about it, but it still had high emotions. It wasn't less for that. Yeah, wasn't, again, not my absolute favourite, but I did enjoy it, and the plotting I thought was brilliant. So that is what I've read in May 2025, and I'll be back next month to tell you what I've read in June.